Welcome to our webinar. I'm Allison Eckhart. I'm the Deputy Director of Communications for the Office of Science. This is the Machine Learning, Artificial Intelligence, and Data Resources for Fusion Energy Sciences Funding Opportunity webinar. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. There is closed captioning available for this webinar. At the bottom, there should be a CC button you can press. This webinar is being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the Office of Science website next week. The slides are actually already there, and I'll drop that into the chat so you can follow along. The other thing is the Q&A. We will have a Q&A session after the presentation, and we will be using the Q&A box at the bottom. So if you see Q&A at the bottom, you can go ahead and type your questions in there, and we will get to them after the presentation. So with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Blanketot with the Fusion Energy Sciences program.
All right, thank you, Allison. So as Allison noted, this is a webinar about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data resources for the Fusion Energy Sciences program. And I'm the program manager for this part of the FES portfolio. But I'm really speaking on behalf of all the FES program managers, as this call spans the entire FES portfolio. So I'm happy to answer your questions today. And if your interest involves specific programs, we can also follow up with others via email. So I have here on the front slide the relevant dates. And I'd note that typically extensions are not provided except in extraordinary circumstances. So but please try and submit your documents before the last day that's allowed. And I would note the disclaimer at the bottom of the slide, which defers to the FOA document that's online. That's the controlling document. So before talking about the announcement itself, let me just say a few words about our program office. The Fusion Energy Sciences program has the mission to expand the fundamental understanding at matter at very high temperatures and densities, and to build the scientific foundations needed to develop a fusion energy source. And this is accomplished primarily by looking at the plasma state and its interactions with its surroundings. In terms of AI and machine learning, the Office of Science more broadly has a unique combination of capabilities that allow us to be one of the leaders in the nation for AI and machine learning R&D for science. We have a broad mission in some of the various program areas, sources of massive and/or complex science and engineering data, world-class high-performance computing infrastructure, primarily through our OSCAR program, and also world-class high-performance network infrastructure, which you all understand the importance of that for trends, for moving data around. And finally, we have you all, an exceptional workforce with large numbers of domain scientists, computer scientists, and mathematicians. And really one of the objectives of this FOA to bring together all of these capabilities to achieve our program mission in the FES program. So the goal of this particular announcement is to support primarily multidisciplinary teams aiming to apply advanced and autonomous algorithms to address high priority research areas across the FES program. Here I stress multidisciplinary instead of multi-institutional. Some institutions have a broad set of competencies and may allow them to put forth multidisciplinary teams, while others may require collaborations to bring together domain scientists and computer and data experts. So both approaches are encouraged here. We're really looking to bring people together to exploit our capabilities. And following recent budget increases this year, we're also expanding the scope of this call to include new systems for managing, formatting, curating, and accessing experimental and simulation data, engineering data, I would add, provided in publicly available databases. I'll say more about this later. And consistent with our long-range strategy and FES approaches that support the realization of a fusion pilot plant on a decadal timescale are of high programmatic importance. For example, work that enables digital twins or supports FPP design are encouraged. So this call is broken down mainly in terms of two general topics or areas, collaborative research and then data resources. And so I'll say a bit about both of those. On the collaborative research side, this is very similar to the approach that we took in 2020. And the areas of interest are partitioned based on the priority research opportunities described in our 2019 report that was co-sponsored by FES and Oscar. Let me read through these quickly. Looking at areas in science discovery using machine learning boosted diagnostics, so topics in Edge ML and control, model extraction and reduction, control augmentation with machine learning, also extreme data algorithms, so looking at data in the extreme scale, looking for efficiencies for processing that data and making use of it in a timely manner. Also data enhanced prediction. So algorithms for predicting, key plasma phenomena and plant system states. And finally, we're also including this time, what was called the Fusion Data Machine Learning Platform. And that includes development of systems for managing, formatting, curating, enabling access of Fusion experimental and simulation data. And this is possible, as I said, with increased budget. Let me also clarify that in our view, these topics cover the entire FES portfolio. So all aspects of the program are in scope: experiment, theory, control, simulation, both magnetic fusion and the new inertial fusion energy program that's being stood up, plasma science, frontier science topics, etc. So if you're unsure about a topic, please do get in contact with me. But if FES is funding the topic in some way at the moment, it's likely of interest here. That said, please do avoid significant overlaps with other funded projects, and this will complicate the award process. On the other topic of fusion data resources, applicants are encouraged to make their research products publicly available in an expeditious manner. And we realize that groups may not, work in a manner that facilitates that kind of immediately. So we're offering the funding specifically to make the data available. And I would note that fair data principles are encouraged. You can read more about that on various locations, including SC website. So again, this category is really aimed at folks requesting essential resources and to use efficient methods to make their data publicly available. I would say that there's a potential overlap between this area and the opportunity number 7. And so let me clarify that a little bit. If funding is requested to make a sort of wide collection of data available within an integrated analysis framework, then I'd say it belongs in collaborative research under this opportunity number 7. For data resources, we're really looking for proposals that are bringing data into the public forum. I note here that SC has a relatively new initiative, the Public Reusable Research Data or PURE initiative. And at present, FES is not currently supporting any activities under this initiative, and we're open to considering some, but there is a high bar for inclusion of these in this effort, and a significant commitment is needed by both FES and an organization to establish and maintain these resources. So I encourage discussion about that within the pre-application process. I'll go on. Let me say a few things about key elements of the opportunity itself. In the eligibility area, all domestic applicants are eligible, including private industry. However, please do keep in mind that the funding is aiming at supporting fundamental research where the research products are shared in an open science manner. So we're not aiming at supporting an applicant's commercial activities, and proprietary work is not supported. For multi-institutional proposals, collaborative and subawards are possible. And please, propose the most efficient approach based on your activity. I'd say in general, when one institution is providing a service to another, a subaward approach is more appropriate. Whereas when institutions are making comparable contributions to the R&D, then either the collaborative or subaward approach can work. Kind of depends on the situation. Please do note that there is a 3 pre-app or application limit per institution and 1 per PI. I'm sure I'll have some questions about that, so I won't go into it too much. But the PI on a pre-application or application may not also be listed as senior or key personnel on another application. And the language in the FOA document is intended to convey this constraint, encouraging folks to submit their most competitive proposals here. If an institution submits more than 3 pre-applications, ultimately only 3 will be encouraged and will likely engage with the institution to determine which submissions should be considered. On the application side, I would direct you to read the FOA document carefully in this areas. And I particularly recommend inclusion of this budget table for multi-institutional proposals, so we can see how the proposed budget breaks down in terms of institutions and by year. I note also that the data management plan and this new peer plan are mandatory. And if you have questions about the peer plan, we can engage further with SC staff. This is a new thing this year. Some further information about the FOA in the document. We're offering up to $33 million over 3 years. Again, period of performance, typically 3 years, but could be less, possibly more in special circumstances. I'll talk more on the next slide about the ceiling and the floor for the proposed budgets. The expected number of awards on the order of 6 to 10 team awards, and possibly a few single institution awards. Again, the types are collaborative and single institution. Now, short-term awards for high-risk scope are permitted. These are especially useful for very speculative studies. I'd ask the question, does it make sense to propose a major team effort if you don't have an expectation that the proposed algorithms to be implemented for your problem will be appropriate? In the past, we've received some proposals that propose to survey, an extremely broad range of algorithms for a particular problem, and typically these review very poorly. So applicants are encouraged to provide a strong justification or at least some reasoning for choosing a specific set of approaches. And I reiterate here, the estimated award date is around August 1st. So we intend to make award selection and awards during this fiscal year. Here are the maximum and minimum award sides, or the ceiling and the floor, broken down by topics and also by the number of distinct institutions. So a single institution, which may include subawards, has a 1.5 million annual budget limit. Multi-institutions are up to 2.5 million per year. And for the data resources, it's capped at 1 million for 3 years. Now, of course, these are the absolute limits. In the document, we also describe what are the anticipated award sizes. So what sort of awards do we typically make? And just based on the last 3-year cycle, the award sizes are thought to range between 80K and 1.5 million per year, with the median award size being between 200 and 500 per year, depending on the number of staff involved at the particular institution. And, award amounts at the ceiling level, they're really anticipated to include sub-awards to multiple institutions. For the pre-applications, these are required, and there's the requirement deadline. The narrative page limit is relatively generous. Usually these are only a couple pages. This can be as much as 4. So I hope I don't receive requests to increase that further. Please do use the list of conflicted persons. There's a collaborator template in the FOA. Here's the link. Here it really allows you to efficiently share this information about potentially conflicted individuals. Okay, that's all I prepared. We will answer questions now using the Zoom Q&A. And after this webinar, we will be posting the view graphs, a slightly updated version of the view graphs. They just have some minor changes. And the recording, the transcript of the frequently asked questions, all on our funding opportunities site. And if you have questions beyond today during the process, please send me an email. Questions about PAMS specifically can be sent to the PAMS help desk.
Yes, and I'm putting
I have
into the chat the website where the recording will be posted, as well as the slides and the FOA are available there. So if you do have questions, go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box. At the bottom, you'll find the Q&A. So we have a first question to start out with. Does this call focus on magnetic fusion specifically? Is laser fusion with extensive AI ML demonstration that can be adapted to magnetic fusion considered responsive to this call?
Yeah, I think I answered that earlier. It's magnetic fusion, IFE, plasma science, frontier science. This is included. And I'd note that members of laser fusion community were involved in the 2019 report. And so you should see, evidence of that when you read that report.
You noted potential overlap between data resources efforts and FDP focused projects. Do we interpret your clarification as implying that if development of an FPD is proposed through which curated data will be made generally available, among other capabilities, this will be viewed as a separate effort from data resources provision and not therefore subject to the $1 million ceiling?
Yeah, that's right. The data resources is really aimed at, bringing data which might not be shared without this specific funding. So it's actually a relatively small amount of funding provided. And if people are proposing to look, no, sorry, the question disappeared.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just keep going. If you're looking to provide a platform for accessing the data, analyzing the data, so on, that does fall under, the opportunity number 7. So I encourage you to look at the report on that topic, and you can ask for clarification through the pre-app process.
Okay. Is there any desired implicit relationship between projects solicited under this FOA and projects funded under SIDAC? Thank you in advance.
Yeah, hi Wes. There is not officially a connection, but I would note that some prior activities under this program were significantly related to SIDAC. One of the challenges this time around is that the SIDAC portfolio, is about to be recomputed itself, and so it's difficult to fund, activities to support those awards since they're not yet established. But I am involved in the SIDAC call, and we will likely look for synergies there. We will also try and avoid overlaps. So the way we've been describing it is that this program really should be aimed at developing capabilities using AI and machine learning algorithms, whereas the SIDAC activities will be more focused on exploiting those for their intended research.
Are proposals allowed to include both AI, ML, and data resources? If so, is the ceiling then $2.5 million per year plus $1.1 million per 3 years?
No.
Okay.
No, it's one or the other.
Okay.
And I would remind you of the one proposal per PI limit.
Okay, so it can be
during this cycle, we don't want a single person doing both. Yeah.
Okay, so either AI, ML, or data resources.
Right.
Okay. Thanks for the webinar. Will renewal applications be given preference?
Renewal applications are actually not permitted under this call.
Okay. Also, will Oscar
Yeah.
fund any of the AI, ML math collaborators, or does FES intend to fund them all?
FES, yeah, our intention is to provide funding for all of the applicants through our program.
Oscar advanced computing ARM program.
Well, yeah, let me say, Oscar is not contributing any funding to this call. So all of the funding, all of the 30 up to 33 million is coming from the FAS budget.
Okay.
And we did in the last cycle, fund folks who were, fusion scientists and who were, nominally, from Oscar. So yeah, our intention is to, fund the teams as proposed, regardless of which SC program they affiliate with.
What role can private fusion companies play in a successful application since for-profit use is not allowed?
Well, I can think of a number of ways. I would be a little reluctant to recommend, specific things here. I would simply say that, I'm aware of several private fusion companies who themselves support or engage in open science. And so I think that they can, contribute in the same way that other institutions do, provided that the associated IP is sort of in the open domain.
Can a PI with background in AL/ML, but not fusion at all, lead a proposal?
Yes.
Does the limit of 3 applications per institution apply only to applications where that institution is the lead institution?
No, it's 3 applications per institution, regardless whether or not they're the lead PI or not. And let me say, if we receive more than 3, like I think I mentioned this earlier, we'll be reaching out to the institutions to sort that out. But ultimately, we'll only be recommending up to 3 per institution for submitting the full application.
Is it appropriate for data resources and data research organizations to apply? What is the level of energy science required to be an eligible applicant under number 7? 2 separate questions.
Well, any domestic applicant can apply. So I think the answer to the first question is yes. I don't know if appropriate is the right word, but it's permitted. And what is the level of energy science required? I mean, it has to be relevant to aspects of the FES research portfolio. So that includes fusion energy science, but also plasma science. So, if you're proposing a topic that's strictly in the plasma science or frontier plasma science areas, then in principle could not include any energy science. And last time around in 20, we didn't receive any proposals that were strictly plasma physics oriented.
If a multi-institution proposal is planned, does the 4-page pre-proposal need to provide budget information such as how much funding going to each of the institutions?
No, it's not essential. Typically at the pre-application stage, that's actually not finalized or sorted out. But if you have information already about that and you wish to share it, it certainly helps provide context for the work that's being proposed. So.
Okay. How much of computational resources can we assume to use? DOE ALCC or DOE Insight level, or smaller than those programs?
But yeah, that's an interesting question. The way that computational resources are being decided is sort of under reconsideration. I would say there's no specific limit that you should consider. We're open to your proposals.
Will material discovery related to fusion energy sciences be considered to be relevant to this FOA? Say material plasma interactions.
Yes, absolutely. Very important.
I may have missed this, but could you clarify the limit on proposals per institution? Limited 3 per institution as lead PI, or 3 per institution at any level of involvement, subcontract, co-PRI. You could just go over that again.
The latter.
Okay.
Any level.
3 per institution at any level.
Correct.
Okay. Could part of the funded work be subcontracted to a third party, for example, if software would be better developed by a software company?
Yes.
Okay. What type of fusion data, ICF, MCF, will be made available, and when can we access it?
So this program is not currently making available, any data specifically. So this is one of the reasons to support the data resources. I would note that some presently funded awardees are making their data and models and so forth available, but they're in external repositories and so forth. And so part of the reason for including this opportunity number 7 and the data resources, try and start to pull some of this stuff together. That's for data that's been compiled and analyzed and models that have been developed for awardees under our program. I would note that the Office of Science supports many scientific user facilities. And so that's a great wealth of data that anybody can access. And so you should reach out to the facilities themselves and see about becoming a user for them. But yeah, for the data compiled and curated and analyzed under existing awards, yeah, that there isn't a kind of single portal for that sort of thing. That is something that's envisioned for the long term.
The present funding opportunity states that in the context of the recent milestone-based program, quote, efforts supported under the FOA can play a supporting role in these activities by providing broad access to curated experimental data and theory modeling analysis, end quote. Can the efforts also support the milestone-based program by providing tools and ML models for use by the milestone-based program?
The answer to that is yes, in the sense that the research products from this program are intended to be distributed as broadly as possible. And so if you make them broadly available, then they could be used by participants in the milestone-based program. But there's not a specific, direct connection between the two that's presently envisioned. For a practical reason is that process is underway, and the awardees have not been decided on. So it's yes, but it's sort of because it's included in a broader set of organizations that we expect will benefit from these tools and models.
Does including real experimental data as part of the proposal make it more preferred compared to using simulation tool for the experiment to generate data?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we're interested to support both experimental efforts and theoretical studies. So it doesn't give it a specific advantage. I could think of instances where it might or it might not play a significant role.
Is there a separate call for DOE labs? No lab call for this. Okay.
No separate call. No. Labs are encouraged to apply alongside other universities, private companies, etc.
Right. And can they be funded with a joint academia lab project?
Yes, yeah, we strongly encourage that. That's the approach that we took in the last cycle, and it was very successful. So we plan to continue it.
Given the full funding rule, would there be plans to bundle subcontractors to get over $1 million a year? And do you recommend subcontracts for this reason?
Well, I think I'd get in trouble if I were to recommend something that would try and circumvent congressional mandates. So yeah, we don't recommend something like that specifically. Typically, our recommendations are to propose a budget that's consistent with the scope of work.
Following up on a previous question, can a PI in a machine learning application be involved as personnel in a data resource proposal?
No.
What level of expertise in AI ML is expected from the PI? He has a background in fusion.
Well, so the program, again, is meant to bring together domain scientists and computer and data science experts. So we would expect that a successful PI would have background in one of those areas. So, if you have a fusion background, then we think, it's possible you could be a PI or the lead PI.
Do you suggest for each institution to pre-select the proposals up to 3, or would you prefer DOE to choose the 3?
Yeah, I don't think I'll answer that question. The limit is 3, and so if an institution submits more than 3, we'll have to iterate with that institution on how to resolve the issue. But we leave it up to the institution to adhere to the requirement.
Yeah. I assume the use of HPC AI ML resources from NSF academic supercomputers are also welcome when they fit appropriately within the context of a proposal.
Yeah, so this FOA doesn't provide the actual computing resources. So yeah, we would certainly permissible to use computing resources from other agencies, as appropriate.
Is the development of novel numerical methods or acceleration of existing numerical methods by leveraging AI ML within the scope of this FOA?
To an extent, fundamental research on AI, machine learning that, has no immediate application to the FES portfolio is likely to be deemed a lower priority. There's a lot of work that's could be done in the near term using existing algorithms, and so those have been prioritized. As time goes on, that might change, that might evolve some, but yeah, currently, focusing solely on the methods themselves is at a lower priority. That being said, there's of course development of the algorithms going on within our research portfolio. So, it's encouraged to an extent, but if it's just the algorithm development itself and it won't be applied to fusion or plasma science, then likely to be deprioritized.
Can a PI make a sub-award to an international institution?
Yes, well, I have to check on that. I'd like to get back to you on that. I think that's permitted, or I should say I didn't explicitly exclude that option, but let me get back to you on that. Of course, you're anonymous, so maybe you can send me a message separately, or I can just try and answer this question in the Q&A.
Yeah, maybe just send an email. You can follow up.
If the person's email is provided, I'm not sure if they're.
Well, they can send you an email.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry for further clarification, but the limit of 3 proposals per institution, which you said would be at any level, seems to be more limiting than the FOA maximum of 3 lead PI proposals allowed from any institution. Since the pre-application is submitted only by the lead PI, maybe you mean 3 pre-applications from any one institution?
Are you trying to give me an out to change the requirement? The FOA says 3 per PI. Doesn't matter what their role is. And the pre-application is indeed submitted only by the lead PI, but they are asked to identify their co-PIs. So you should be, this individual should be named in the pre-application. And I hope I can still count to 3, even though I'm a bureaucrat. So.
Apologies if this has been answered already. Will an attendee list for this call be shared with the group to foster possible collaboration? As indicated before, there are both data science, ML, and fusion experts on this call. Or is there some other way that you're fostering that collaboration?
Yeah, is that a question for you, Allison? I'm not sure that the attendee list.
We don't generally provide the attendee list for our calls to the community. Usually, if there is a collaboration element that the program wants to do, that's taken care of separately.
Yeah,
just for privacy reasons.
Right. Yeah, let me think about that one. We had wanted to have sort of more of community events, but the timeframes for getting out funding opportunities this year was rather short, so it wasn't possible.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep thinking about
that. Is there any preference for multi-investigator proposals? Will small scale 2 to 3 investigator proposals be competitive?
Yes. Yep, they are competitive. I would, focus on the scope and propose the team needed to complete that scope, and I wouldn't necessarily rate higher proposals simply because it has more institutions and more individuals involved. So yeah, it really depends on the proposed scope of work.
Right, that is the end of our questions that have been submitted. If you have another question that was not answered, you can go ahead and drop it in. We will stall for a minute or two. If you have something else that you want to get in touch with, Matt's email is on the screen. It's also in the funding opportunity. You can look there for more information. I am also going to drop in the chat our mailing email, or I'm sorry, our email list, so you can sign up to receive more information from the Office of Science. Give me 1 second while I copy that over. All right, so you can sign up there to receive more information from Office of Science on this type of funding opportunity, other items with data science or fusion. Yeah, and there. Oh, one more question. Would participation of experimental collaborators strengthen the proposal?
If it's furthers the aims of the proposed scope, then yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. Matt, do you have anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I will go through the Q&A today and put it up there, so it should be up in the next day or so. And no, I thank everybody for joining and for your questions, and please follow up with me via email if you didn't get to ask your question. I look forward to your applications.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Allison.